My family refused to pick me up after brain surgery, then my family panicked when someone else helped me. Welcome back with a new real shock story. Before we start, comment and tell me which city you're watching from. At the end, don't forget to subscribe and rate it from 0 to 10. Let's enjoy the story, everyone.
It started like any ordinary morning, though I didn't know it yet. I woke up to the sound of my alarm, the pale sunlight creeping through my blinds, and the strange ache in my head. I'd been ignoring it for days, brushing it off as stress, exhaustion, maybe too much coffee. But this time it was different. Sharp, unrelenting. I tried to tell myself it wasn't serious. I got dressed anyway, forcing a smile, even though deep down I was scared. Life had been hard lately. My family wasn't close in the way most people imagine. We lived under the same roof, but there were walls between us. Silent ones built from years of misunderstanding, pride, and unspoken disappointments. I'd learned to keep my pain to myself, so when the pain in my head turned unbearable, I ignored it until I collapsed. When I woke up, it was not in my bed. The hospital ceiling above me was white and sterile. Machines beeped softly in the background. My body felt heavy. My mind was clouded. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry and my voice barely came out. Somewhere nearby, a nurse was talking in low tones with someone. That someone was not my family. And then the words I never expected to hear came. She needs surgery. It's urgent. The next hours were a blur. I remember flashes, bright lights, doctors moving quickly, my hand slipping from the bed as if I was letting go of something. Somewhere deep inside, fear took over. I kept asking silently, will I make it? Will anyone be here when I wake up? I woke up again later, but the world felt strange. My head throbbed with pain, and my body felt like it wasn't mine anymore. I blinked slowly, trying to focus. That's when I realized something else. No one was there. No familiar faces, no voice calling my name. Just silence. I tried to speak again, weakly calling out for my family, but the nurses told me they had not come. My throat tightened. I couldn't believe it. How could they not be here? I had just gone through brain surgery, something so terrifying and life-changing, and they simply weren't there. Hours passed. The beeping of machines became my only constant. I thought about them, my parents, my siblings. I tried to convince myself maybe they were stuck, maybe there was some mistake. But deep down, the truth burned. They chose not to come. I was alone. That feeling of abandonment sank deep into my bones. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Why wouldn't they come? Was it anger, fear, or something else? I didn't have answers, but I knew something had shifted forever. Days later, as I struggled to regain strength, whispers reached me. Other patients, nurses, even a passing visitor mentioned something. They spoke of a figure, someone unexpected, someone who came for me when my own blood refused. I didn't know who they were, but I could feel the tension in the air, and my heart sank and leapt at the same time. When I was well enough to stand, they told me the story, how someone I never thought would care stepped in, without question, someone who risked everything. My chest tightened when I heard their name. I won't forget the look in their eyes when they walked through my hospital room door. Not because it was warm or kind, but because it was filled with the truth I had never known. I mattered to them. And my family? They came later. But not the way I imagined. Not with comfort. Not with love. They came panicked, hurt, confused, and maybe ashamed. But what they saw, who had come for me, changed everything. I'm telling you this because it's not just my story. It's a story of betrayal, of courage, of what happens when the people you expect to be there walk away, and the people you never expect step in. The question I keep asking myself is, when it matters most, who will stand for you, and will you recognize them when they do? When I finally got out of the hospital bed, the world felt heavier. My body was sore in ways I couldn't describe, but it was nothing compared to the weight pressing on my heart. Every step I took was awkward, my muscles weak, my mind dizzy. But worse than that was the silence in my house when I finally returned. It wasn't the silence of peace. It was the silence of absence. My room was the same, but my world was not. My family was there in the house, but not for me. My parents avoided my eyes. My siblings barely spoke. It was like I had become a stranger in my own home. Every glance felt sharp, every step quiet, like walking on broken glass. I tried to speak to them. I asked once, twice, but they brushed me off. My father muttered something about being busy. My mother gave me a look that was half pity, half guilt. No one told me why they weren't at the hospital when I needed them most, and I didn't have the strength to ask again. Instead, my mind kept drifting back to the figure who had been there. They didn't come quietly, not in a formal way, no flowers, no official visits. They just appeared, without explanation, and they stayed long enough to make sure I was safe. I still didn't know their name then, but I remember their face, calm, determined, unafraid. And I remember how different it felt to see someone care for me without hesitation. The days turned into a strange blur. I had physical therapy appointments, follow-ups with doctors, tests that reminded me of how fragile I was now. But the emotional pain, that was harder to shake. I was recovering my body, but my trust was broken. And every time I thought about it, a small voice in me whispered, "Why them, and not my family?" One afternoon, when I was lying on the couch trying to rest, my door opened softly. My parents were there. My mother's eyes looked heavy, like she had been carrying something she couldn't tell me. My father stood behind her, hands in pockets, not saying much. They just looked at me. "What happened?" My mother finally asked, her voice trembling. But she wasn't asking for my health. She was asking about something else. "I'm not sure you want the truth," I said quietly. Her lips tightened. My father shifted his weight. Neither spoke again. And just like that, they left. No explanation, no comfort, just silence again. That night, my thoughts spiraled. I kept thinking about the moment I woke up alone in that hospital room. How my family knew I was in surgery and still didn't come. How they left me. And yet, the one person who stepped in wasn't even obligated to be there. I didn't know then that finding out who they were would change everything. That it would uncover secrets I never expected. Secrets about my family, about myself, and about what it really means to care. A week later, I got a call. The voice on the other side was calm but firm. "Alec Rose?" they asked. I hesitated. "Yes. I think we need to talk." That was all. No name, no explanation. Just those words. My heart started racing. I didn't know who it was, but I knew it was connected to what happened. And I knew I had no choice but to find out. The next day, they came to my house. Not knocking. not announcing themselves, just walking in like they belonged. My family was there, and the moment they saw this person, everything shifted. My parents stiffened. My siblings froze. And for the first time since my surgery, they weren't the center of attention. They looked at me. I looked at them. And I knew. Whatever was coming next, whatever truth was about to be revealed, it would change my life forever. Because this wasn't just a story about brain surgery. It was about trust, betrayal, family, and courage in the face of something far bigger than me. And I had no idea what would happen when the truth came me out. When they stepped inside, everything changed. The air in the room felt heavier, charged with something I couldn't name. My heart thudded in my chest so loud it felt like it could break my ribs. My family froze where they stood. No one spoke. And for a moment the room was full of silence. But it was a loaded silence, the kind that holds secrets. The stranger looked at me, really looked at me, and I swear I could feel the weight of their gaze. There was something in their eyes, calm but firm, as if they knew things I didn't, as if they carried truths that were dangerous to speak aloud. My parents shifted uncomfortably. My siblings looked away. It was then I realized they were afraid. Afraid not of me, but of this person standing before us. Without a word, the stranger stepped forward. My knees weakened, not because of fear, but because of the truth I suddenly felt was about to hit me. They didn't introduce themselves. They didn't explain why they were here. They just stood there, their silence louder than any words could be. My mother finally broke it. "Who are you?" Her voice trembled. The stranger didn't answer her. They looked directly at me, and in that moment, I felt the truth roll over me like a wave. This wasn't just about who showed up for me that night. This was about something much bigger, something buried deep under years of silence. They stepped closer. "Alec," they said softly. My name sounded strange coming from their mouth, like it belonged to a story I hadn't yet lived. I came because no one else would. The words cut through me. My breath caught. I wanted to cry, but my throat was dry. My mind raced. Questions I didn't dare speak rushed forward all at once. Why would they do this? How did they even know? And most importantly, why hadn't my family been there? My father's face was pale. My mother's hands trembled. They looked at each other, and I realized they knew this moment was a turning point. They didn't want to speak, because they feared what would come out. Boo, the stranger stepped forward anyway. They weren't asking permission. They were claiming truth. "You need to know what happened," they said quietly. My stomach dropped. My whole body tightened. "Your family didn't come because they knew. They knew it could change everything." I blinked, confused. My voice caught when I finally spoke. "Change everything? How?" The stranger took a deep breath. "Because what happened that night, after your surgery, was more than a medical emergency. It was a test, and your family failed it." A shiver ran down my spine. My parents looked away, their faces pale as ghosts. My siblings shifted uncomfortably. The silence came again, but this time it felt heavier, thicker. It pressed on me from every side. "Why are you telling me this?" I whispered. "Because you deserve the truth," the stranger replied. "And because what you don't know will hurt you more than what you do." My mind was spinning. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. My body felt frozen, like I was watching the scene happen to someone else, and yet I knew I was in it. My parents stepped forward, their voices low and shaky. "Alec, we..." But they didn't finish. They couldn't. The stranger's eyes bore into them, and suddenly it was clear. This wasn't just a story about me. This was a story about every choice they'd ever made, every secret they'd buried, every silence that had built walls between us. The stranger turned back to me. "You have to decide what happens next, because once this is out, nothing will ever be the same." My chest tightened, my throat burned, my mind screamed, but my body felt heavy with fear and uncertainty. I realized then that this wasn't just about my surgery anymore. This was about my life, my family, and a truth no one had been brave enough to speak until now. I wanted to ask more questions, but my voice failed me. Instead, I just stared at them, waiting for the truth that would change everything. And they gave it to me. But it was worse than I expected, because the truth wasn't just shocking. It was something that would shake my world to its very foundation. And in that moment, I knew there was no going back. The stranger stepped closer, their voice steady but heavy with something I couldn't place. Urgency, fear, maybe even sorrow. "Alec, they didn't just leave you that night after your surgery. They made a choice that wasn't about you. It was about protecting themselves." My breath caught. My hands shook. My whole body felt numb. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My parents stayed silent, avoiding my eyes, as if looking at me would make the truth more real. But the stranger didn't stop. "They knew you'd need help," they said softly. "They knew you'd be alone. And still, they walked away." It felt like the air itself had been stolen from the room. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I could barely breathe. My mind raced, trying to piece together why this was happening. Why my own family, the people who promised to always protect me, had abandoned me. "You need to understand," the stranger continued, their voice breaking just slightly. "It's not just about that night. There's more, something they've been hiding for years." My stomach dropped, my hands curled into fists. I could feel tears welling up, but I forced them back. I didn't want to cry, not yet. Not until I knew the whole truth. The stranger reached into their coat pocket and pulled out a small, folded envelope. My name was written across it in neat handwriting. They handed it to me without a word. My fingers trembled as I took it. The weight of it felt heavier than anything I'd ever held. I opened it. My eyes widened. The words inside made my heart stop. It wasn't just a note. It was proof. Proof of a choice my family had made. A decision that changed my life forever. My mother stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Alec, please, you don't understand." But I shook my head. I wanted to hear her, but the stranger's words echoed louder in my mind. "No," I whispered. "I understand more than you think. You walked away when I needed you most. And now..." My voice cracked. "Now I have to know why." The stranger took a deep breath, their eyes locking on mine. "Because if you know, Alec, you can't go back to the way things were. And they know that too." The air felt heavier. Time seemed to slow. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Every breath felt sharp, Every second stretched like an eternity. My entire life was about to change in a single moment. I looked at my family, at their pale faces, their trembling hands, their unwillingness to meet my gaze. And in that moment, I knew this was the breaking point. The stranger stepped aside. "It's your choice now, Alec. You can walk away, or you can step into the truth." My hands gripped the envelope tighter. My heart pounded louder. My mind screamed for answers, and my soul trembled for closure. I looked at my family one last time, and then I made my choice. Because there was no turning back. I stood there, the envelope still clutched in my hands, feeling the world tilt beneath me. My chest was tight, my breath uneven. My family was silent, watching me with expressions I couldn't read. Guilt, fear, shame. I didn't know anymore who they were. They weren't the people I thought I knew. Slowly, I opened the envelope again, my fingers trembling. Inside was a set of papers, documents, photos, messages. Evidence that painted a picture far darker than I could have imagined. It wasn't just about the night after my surgery. It was years of silence, of choices made without my knowledge. Choices that had left me alone when I needed them most. I felt anger rise first, sharp, blinding, the kind of anger that twists your stomach and leaves your hands shaking. But then came something else. Sadness. Deep sadness, because this wasn't just my pain. It was the pain of a story that had been repeated for years, in families and communities, in ways no one wanted to talk about. My eyes fell on my parents. My mother's lips quivered, her eyes wet. My father looked away. My siblings avoided looking at me altogether. And in that silence, the truth settled between us like dust. Something had been broken. Something I could never fix again. I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to be steady. You left me when I was at my weakest, when I needed you most, and you chose someone else to be there for me. That changes everything. My voice cracked, but I held my ground. The stranger stepped closer. This is your moment, Alec. The moment you decide who you will be from now on. I looked down at the envelope one last time. Then I let it fall to the floor. It landed with a quiet thud that seemed louder than anything else in the room. I am done being silent, I said softly. Not just for me, but for everyone who's ever been abandoned, ignored, or left behind. My family didn't answer. They didn't move. And I didn't wait for them to. I walked out of that house, my steps heavy but certain. Outside, the air was colder than I expected, but I felt free. Because I had chosen truth over comfort, pain over silence, and in that choice, I found something powerful. This wasn't just my story. It was a story about trust, about betrayal, about injustice, about what happens when people turn away when someone needs them most. And it made me ask myself, and everyone who hears this, one question. How many truths are we ignoring? And how many chances do we lose because we choose silence over action? I don't have all the answers, but I do know this. Silence isn't safe. Silence is consent. And I will never be silent again, because my story isn't over. Not yet.